I was on the protest side of the Vietnam War, and I marched and I worked to end the war, wrote letters. I was very young, and the most memorable one was a march that came from the University of Minnesota down University Avenue to the Capitol, and it was led by guys who had been there and came back. It was amazing to me how many of the guys who were coming back from the war were joining the peace movement. They were not against the peace movement. And I had uncles who had served in World War II. I had an aunt who had been a Rosie the Riveter during World War II. So war was a topic of discussion when I was small and I was growing up. And the one thing that I remember distinctly hearing over and over again was the phrase, "Old men make wars, young men are sent to fight them," which I don't know if that just resonated with me. And so war to me was something that you didn't want to do. And at least from my perspective, and many of the people that I knew in the movement, the goal was to make the politicians in Washington end the war. It was not, I don't recall anybody in the group that I was associated with ever blaming a soldier who had come back or somebody who had served for going to war, because at that time there was a draft. You didn't have any choice. If you were drafted and you passed all the tests, then you were sent to Vietnam, or you were sent somewhere. But so the guys who went to Vietnam didn't really have a choice about going to Vietnam, and that's kind of how I viewed it and had always viewed it. A few years back, well, quite a few years back now, when I met Mike, we're both our second time around, and I remember asking him to go to the fireworks with me on a 4th of July. And he went with me. He didn't say, "I don't like fireworks" or anything, but he went with me. And during the fireworks to me were always something that my dad took me to when I was little, so it was a very kind of good thing for me. And we went, and I looked at him, and he had tears running down his face. And it was because he'd been in Vietnam during the Tet. And it just, the fireworks brought back all of those memories to him. So that's kind of like the last fireworks that I've been to. And the other piece for now is, I forget if it was, I think it was about 2003, he got a call from a guy that he had served with. And there were a few of them that he had served with. They hadn't talked to each other in 40 years at that time. We're going to get together with a reunion. And so we went to it. And the thing to me, they had all been I think it's called a fire unit. They operated the big guns. They worked up the coordinates. They get the calls in, "We need firepower here," and they did the coordinates. And here were guys who hadn't seen each other in 40 years, who could finish each other's stories, who could finish each other's sentences. And I'm still amazed, because now they get together every 2 years or so. We have a get-together, and now the wives come and anybody else. And these guys, the bond that they develop in that period of time, it almost makes me cry sometimes, because you can just feel what they went through together and how much the time that they spent together, what an impact it had on all of their lives. And Mike has said he was really lucky because he got to go be in a fairly protected area, because if you manned the big guns, you were in a pretty protected area. And I think they only lost one guy while he was there. But it's still, just to watch them, just to hear the stories, how some of them remember everything that went on, and other guys say, "I don't remember, it's just all a blur." And those differing reactions are even really, really interesting as far as I'm concerned, to how this is. I still protest wars. I don't think we should have to fight them, and I think that what it does to us is make us just a little bit less human. Although watching these guys, it really makes me proud of the way they were.